Hi everybody, Jake here at Duramax Truck. Today we're going to be talking about the FASS EGR filter system. This is going to be a really good solution for you guys who have to stay emissions intact because you're adding a filter in between your manifold and your EGR system. And if you want to make your truck run as clean as possible, check out the FASS EGR filter system. It's going to stop a lot of that soot from caking up in your engine and restricting airflow. So we got a couple questions from you guys. How does this thing get cleaned? This is a self-regenerative filter, so it's going to be regenerating itself, just heating up, burning off that soot, giving you clean, nice air into your EGR cooler. Does it ever need to be removed? FASS says a 100,000 mile interval for this thing to be removed and cleaned by any DPF shop. Does this void your factory warranty? So this should not void your factory warranty, but it's always safe to double check with your local dealer just to make sure it doesn't. Is it safe to run with emissions intact tuning? Yes, it is. It's not going to affect any of the emissions intact tuning. It's just going to make your truck run a whole lot cleaner, so you're not going to get that soot buildup in your engine. Why should you upgrade to the FASS EGR filter system? Well, if you can't delete your truck and you don't want to, or your state doesn't allow it, whatever the reason, this is going to be a good solution for you to get your truck running in peak condition for hundreds of thousands of miles. It's going to really make these engines last a whole lot longer without all that soot and oil building up inside that intake system, just causing a bunch of issues. We know it causes issues with the older Duramaxes, and it's going to cause issues with these L5P Duramaxes. So working hand in hand with the emissions, this is going to be a good solution for you. And number 5, how difficult is it to install? Well, everything shows that it should be pretty easy. We're going to go ahead and install this on this truck and let you know.
Hey, Eric with Duramax Store. Today we're going to be installing a FASS EGR filter on this 2020 truck. Relatively simple. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull the heat shield that covers the EGR pipe that goes from the EGR valve up to the bypass valve. We're going to start with the upper heat shield. This one needs to be removed to access the EGR shield in the lower position. There's 3 bolts holding this guy on. All right, get this guy out of the way. One more bolt on this coolant pipe. All right, here you can see the shield that I'm working on. This is the lower 2 bolts that we're going to be pulling out to access the EGR pipe. This is your EGR valve, but we're not going to be messing with that. That just stays where it's at. I do recommend spraying your bolts if you do have a truck that's not a California Queen. Make sure that they come out in one piece. This one does have a little bit of mileage on it, so there is some rust, but we're not using impact because I don't want to snap anything off. We'll be able to get this lower shield out. All right, now we have the 2 heat shields out. This one's the cover for the pipe we're going to be replacing. This is the upper one that covers up the bypass and EGR pipe up in the top. Next part is there's 2 bolts up on the top of the EGR pipe that go to the bypass valve. We're going to take those 2 off and we'll lift the truck back up for a better view and we'll get to the bottom 2. All right, why don't you guys come on in here and you can see what I'm talking about. This is where the first shield was. This is where the EGR pipe shield is. This is the pipe we're going to be pulling off your bypass valve. So we're going to take these 2 13mm bolts loose. Then we're going to go down to the bottom of this pipe and pull the other 2 13mm bolts off and remove this EGR pipe. So you can do these 2 bolts from the top. I'm doing them from the bottom just so that we can see all of them at the same time. So you loosen these guys up here. There's a little bit of tension on them. All right, the bottom 2 bolts are out. I gotta get the other 2 bolts. You can actually do these both from the top if you want, but for our video purposes, it's a lot easier for you to see if I got it up in the air. You can take an extension down from the top and get these. So there's more than one way to skin a cat, so to speak. All right, once you get these bolts out, you'll be able to pull the pipe out as well. These L5Ps have these pins in their pipes and other areas that actually hold the gaskets on. So if they don't fall off, that's why. Now that we got this pipe off, we're gonna take the FASS pipes. This one is gonna be the lower one. This is gonna be the one that's on the EGR valve that's attached to your manifold. This other side is gonna go up to the top where your bypass valve is, and then you'll have the filter in the middle. So let's start by putting this guy on. We're gonna use the supplied bolts and gasket. Put our logo out just because it's pretty. It's got a little flip latch on it, so get the clamp over, pull the T-bolt out, flip the clamp over. All right, now to hold it in place for us, we're going to snug it up just like we didn't tighten these up yet until we get the upper pipe in and everything kind of situated. Then we can tighten up all our bolts and clamps. So I'm gonna snug this clamp up real quick so it doesn't pop free on me. So we're just gonna snug this up a little bit here. I'm just using some hand tools. All right, we're pretty snug. It should stay on there for now. And then we have the other pipe. So we got this guy and the gasket and our bolts. All right, we're gonna put the upper pipe in now. What you wanna do is you wanna make sure when you're getting this upper pipe in here that we get this harness on the other side of this pipe. This harness also needed to be unclipped from the upper control arm mount pocket. So we're moving that harness, make sure it's on the outside because we're not gonna use the existing mounting area in the upper control arm pocket. We're actually going to move it over to keep it out of the way of this EGR pipe and use a zip tie and zip tie it to the this upper AC hose. Then here's our support bracket. There's already a pre-existing hole, threaded hole in this manifold that was never used from the factory, so we're going to use the supplied bolt and put the bracket on here. This bracket's just going to give a little extra support for this whole assembly. I'm just going to leave it snug right now. Then we're going to supplied band clamp is going to go around this to keep everything together. This guy right here is going to get repositioned. There's a clip right here. We're going to move that over, and we're going to basically reposition this guy over here away from the pipe up there and keep everything out of the way of the new rerouted EGR pipe. All right, so now I want to start by snugging up some components. All right, gasket and 2 bolts. These are going to go in the top part on your EGR bypass valve. So pretty simple to do so far. Bolt number 2. It was a little bit cramped in here with the rest of the EGR parts and the coolant pipe, but you can do it, no big deal. We're gonna keep these hand tight right now as well. So we gotta put a bracket on down below to support the filter. And then after that, we can start snugging things up. So these clamps are nice. They're, it's like self-aligning V-band clamp. So it's similar to your down pipe to cat pipe if you have a pre-16 Duramax. And the same as your downpipe to turbo outlet, if you have a LOY and up to 16, so you know all about these. So that's it's all nice and snug. All right, let's snug this guy up. I'm just keeping in mind that there's a AC line here. So we'll position this clamp so it doesn't touch. So we got a little more snug. We're gonna get in here and tighten this guy down some more before I get the band clamp tighter. As you tighten it, you'll notice the whole assembly kind of starts to flex. That's why we're not tightening any of the bolts until we get everything in here. Okay, now this guy's tight, which I'm going to go back and torque all these bolts after I get everything snugged up. Now we'll get this guy on here. That'll help support everything, and it's also going to move this a little bit more. So want to make sure all this stuff is tight, and then we can go back to the 4 bolts holding the pipe to the EGR and the bypass valve. And now we're secure in here. We can go back and now we can tighten up these guys down here and the ones on the top. There's plenty of clearance in here. It looks like they've done a good job of keeping everything away. Not to worry about needing any kind of a heat shield because there's tons of room in between all these components. So I'm just going to give these guys a little bit here on the bottom and the top before the final torque. Sneak in here with a ratchet, and we're going to snug it down, then I'll come back and torque all these to spec. So as you can see, so far really not a whole lot of wrenches involved in this skill level on this one. Mostly just being hands, you got to be able to twist and move to get bolts in, but very nicely packaged. Now we just can't wait to see what the longevity is. We can test this. We're going to go back and look at the filter here periodically and just see what's inside. All right, so there's only 2 components you're not going to be able to put back on your truck. The heat shield that went from the EGR to the bypass valve, obviously that pipe from your EGR to your bypass valve, but you will be able to put the upper EGR shield back on, which will keep everything good underneath the hood, especially your air inlet for your airbox. All right, so I just recently did cylinder heads on my truck. I put an engine in it about 43,000 miles ago. I did some upgrades. So one of the things I upgraded was cylinder heads. But what I was really surprised in is it's fully intact truck, not deleted, all emissions intact, is how much buildup is in the runners and this clamshell. This is what we're trying to prevent with this filter is you get some oil residue from your PCV because it's a closed circuit PCV, and then all that soot just literally attaches itself, and then you end up with a reduced size inlet for your intake, and then it goes through your motor. I mean, that's just amazing. I've seen worse. I mean, many of you guys have had them apart. You've seen these over the years, and it's amazing how much buildup is in there from the mixture of the PCV vapor and your soot getting re-ingested by your engine. So minimal parts, reasonable amount of time, I don't know, 2 wrenches maybe on the wrench-o-meter. Simple install. This should keep your EGR functioning properly for, 100K. So let's see how it works.